In this video, we'll examine the Function Editors feature, compare changes format available in the APL64 developer version instance. When an APL64 programmer-defined function is edited and saved to the workspace, the prior and current edits are saved in the function's definition. When the function is subsequently edited, the prior edits are available using the undo and redo actions. Prior function edits are retained across subsequent APL64 developer version instances. The traditional format of the function editor presents one pane containing the current state of the function's text, including any APL64 programmer edits of that function text. The compare format of the function editor presents two panes, the reference text pane and the editable text pane. The two compare format panes illustrate how the function was edited over time using special foreground and background rendering. The editable pane is identical to the traditional format of the APL64 function editor. The reference pane illustrates the function text before any current or retained prior edits were applied. When an APL64 programmer edits the function, using either function editor formats, these edits are recorded in the function definition as function editing change records. These records are retained when the function is saved to the workspace. Because these edits are retained when the function is saved, the edits are available for the APL64 programmer as undo and redo actions when the function is subsequently edited in the current or a subsequent APL64 developer version instance. The traditional format of the APL64 function editor provides all of the features for editing the function text and saving it to the current workspace as an APL64 programmer-defined function. An experienced APL64 programmer will be completely familiar with the traditional function editor format. While the APL64 programmer edits the function text, those edits are transparently recorded and appended to any previous edits stored within the function definition. Because programmer edits made prior to the editor instance are available in the function definition, the undo and redo actions are available for all prior and current function edits. Recorded function edits are called function editing change records. The reference pane of the compare format of the APL64 function editor illustrates the function text prior to the programmer edits made in a prior or the current function editor instance. The editable pane of the compare format of the APL64 function editor is identical to the traditional format of the APL64 function editor. The location of the keyboard focus in either pane determines the available function editing tools for that pane. Since the reference pane is not editable, actions like find and copy are available in the reference pane, but actions like delete, paste and replace are not available in the reference pane. Like in the traditional format of the APL64 function editor, function editing change records are maintained in the function definition. Retained function editing history records are available in subsequent function editor instances using the undo and redo actions. Function editing history records are retained across APL64 developer version instances. The keyboard shortcuts, Ctrl+C and Ctrl+Y, as well as toolbar and menu buttons are available for the undo and redo actions. Since function editing change records are retained for the current and prior editor instances, the undo and redo actions in the function editor can be repeatedly used to change the function state in the editor. For the compare format of the APL64 function editor, Repeatedly using the undo action in the editable pane will eventually make the function text in the editable pane match the function text in the reference pane. A consecutive pair of undo-redo actions is not retained if that pair makes no material change to the function text. Function editing change records are retained by the traditional and compare formats of the APL64 function editor, the APL64 Quad DEF, Quad Def, Quad FX, and Quad Edit Event System functions, and the function autosave actions in the APL64 developer version. Loading, saving, or copying from an APL64 format workspace retains function editing change records. QuadVR and QuadCR return the current function text from the workspace definition of the function. When the Commit Editing Changes button is clicked, prior and current function editing change records will be consolidated into a single record. Function editing change records for edits prior to the current function text state are no longer retained. The commit action does not modify the editable function text. The commit action sets the non-editable reference text to the editable function text. The undo action in the editable pane will apply only to subsequent programmer edits made after the commit action is used. This commit action saves the function to the workspace. This commit action cannot be undone. By using the commit action, the programmer has decided that all current and prior edits are to be considered final. Programmer edits made in a function editor instance after the commit action is used will be saved as function editing change records in the function definition. Click the horizontal-vertical button to switch the pane orientation between horizontal and vertical formats. In this example, a new line has been added by typing or pasting to the editable function text, and that new line does not contain a new line ending. In this example, two new lines were added to the editable function text by typing or pasting, and both new lines contained a new line ending. In this example, some characters on a line were modified. In this example, some characters on an existing line were deleted. To select the colors used by the APL64 function editor compare format, use the options, Colors dialog. The colors with the diff prefix are those used in the compare format of the function editor. Function editing change records may be directly viewed for a function in the workspace. Click the Objects, Function Editor, Function Editing Change Records, Review Function Editing Change Records menu item to present the review dialog. The function editing change records for a function in the workspace may be reviewed using Function Editing Changes Records dialog. The list of functions in the workspace with existing function editing change records are listed at the top of the dialog. When a function name in the list is selected, the function text from the associated function in the workspace is presented in the function text box. This function text in the function text box is not editable. Since function editing change records have been saved in the function's definition, the APL64 programmer can display the effects of those changed in the function text box by clicking the Remove or Apply Change buttons. The desired function state may be selected using the Remove or Apply Change buttons. Clicking the Edit Function button will open an APL64 function editor using the desired function state text. If an APL64 object with the same name is already being edited, an appropriate prompt will provide the APL64 programmer with available options. If the APL64 programmer does not want to retain function editing change records prior to or after the current function editor instance, use the Objects, Function Editor Change Records menu item and unclick the Consider Function Editing Change Records option. When this option is unchecked, and if function editing change records have been previously recorded, those records will be deleted the next time the function is edited and saved to the workspace. Function editing change records are retained by the traditional and compare formats of the APL64 function editor, the APL64 Quad DEF, Quad DEF-L and Quad Edit Event System functions, and the function autosave actions in the APL64 developer version. Loading, saving, or copying from an APL64 format workspace retains function editing change records. The saved function editing change records are accessible in the APL64 function editor using the undo and redo actions. Retained function editing change records increase the size of an APL64 programmer-defined function saved in an APL64 workspace. Use the commit action of the APL64 function editor to retain editing history only as long as necessary to maintain minimum function definition size. The execution performance of an APL64 programmer-defined function is not materially affected by retained function editing history in the function definition. Thank you for viewing this video. If you have questions or comments, please contact support@apl2000.com.